please put it on the chat. Let me know your name. Let me have your name, where you work, what you read. I just want to familiar. You know, this ESP stuff is all about environment, but environment cut across all courses, you know. So that is why I have to know. Like I told you, I read microbiology. I'm an environmental microbiologist. And so most of my samples might be science-based. So I might call you at any time to give me example from your own field. So when I talk, you quickly consider where you work and how is what we are discussing related to your own field so that you can integrate it. So, like I said, I'm spending 1 hour. And this course, you already know, is ESP 814. It's a 3-unit course. The title is Research Methodology in Environmental Studies. And like I told you, almost every course has environmental implication. So I painted yellow and red. I am a scientist, so I will be doing Introduction to Environmental Research. Dr. Maloma will be doing Introduction to Social Sciences Research Method, so that if you fall into science, you will gain from me. If you fall into social science, you will gain, and then you marry everything you learn from both of us, and get whatever you want. This is a master's level, and most of you are working. So definitely you need something that will be relevant to either where you are or where you are going in the nearest future. So we'll also be talking about research skills, effective group working, reading, writing, plagiarism, referencing. We'll talk about research design and assessment, and then I'll talk about research project plan. So Dr. Maloma will talk about quantitative and qualitative data research, statistical models, analysis of qualitative and quantitative data, and data interpretation and presentation. So that is your synopsis for this course. Yes, we are in the exam period. So anytime I cannot attend to you, I will let you know ahead. Then I will discuss with your class captain or governor so that we can fix another appropriate time. You know, we are in exam period. I'm also the exam officer. So I cannot guarantee that every week. For now, I will be available. However, at the end of maybe towards March 20 something, I'll be a bit relieved again, because I will now, after March 20, whatever, maybe 27th, I will have only one course to do around April middle. So in between that time, I may want to teach you very well. Usually in 3 weeks, I'm usually done with my lectures because I already prepared my slides ahead. All right, so let us move quickly because we have just 15 minutes more to do this. So we'll start, and wherever we'll stop for today. I will always give you the slides before the next lecture so that you can read. So this is a lecture. This is postgraduate school, and we are not expected to bring everything to you to the class. So you get some introduction, you read relevant publication that is relevant to your field. However, the questions that we ask will be general, so it will be based on what I teach you. It will be a general question that can be applied to any field, whether it's engineering, whether it's microbiology or physics or whatever. I hope that is okay. If you can still hear me, please, class captain, tell me yes.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So let's do introduction to environmental research methods. So what is environmental research method? The method for environmental research is essential tools which enables us to understand the complex interactions between our natural environments and our human systems. And indeed, for every other thing that is living. We have the lakes, we have the rivers, we have the air, we have different biodiversity that are natural to our ecosystems. And environmental research is the study, the scientific, remember to put scientific study of environmental processes and systems. This includes the effects of human activity also on this ecosystem that we are talking about. This method of environmental research will enable researchers like me, like yourself, to collect, to analyze, and to interpret data. And why are we doing that? Is to address environmental issues. We all know we are talking about pollution, we are talking about climate change, we are talking about biodiversity loss, we are talking about our resources being depleted. So there is the need to study the environment. And if there is need to study the environment so that we can find solutions to all the various challenges that I have mentioned, then there must be a method, because anything you want to do that is not scientifically proven is not authentic. So, and research methods are scientific, they have been proven. So that is what we want to talk about. Environmental research is very broad, like I said, it's a broad field. There are so many fields and you cannot talk about environmental research without mentioning the science people, whether it's life science, can't do without the engineers, can't do without those that read physics, can't do without all the fields, social sciences, because human behaviors also influences whatever happens in the environment. So environmental research is very broad and it encompasses various topics. It could be air, it could be water quality, it could be climate change, it could be diversity issue, it could be pollution. So scientists use a variety of tools and techniques to carry out environmental research. And this may include field study, laboratory experiments, or computer modeling. Additionally, environmental research is important, even for medical practitioners. So you cannot say because you are a medical person, you don't have anything to do with environment. No, the environment has a lot to do with health. If you have pollution in the environment, it will affect your patient. More patients will come with respiratory infection or skin infection, or a lot of complaint about kidney problems and all that. Or if you have your water system polluted, the river is polluted, then the medical doctor might be in for infections like maybe typhoid and dysentery and all that. So environmental research is also important for medical issues. So a number of environmental conditions or exposures and pollutants, exposures to pollutants increase or decrease the likelihood of certain disease. So you can see that this environmental thing that we are talking about concerns everybody. Nobody can exonerate themselves. So what is the objective of this environmental research? I've mentioned some of them, even in this, my field talk that I have done. What is the objective of environmental research? Why are we studying the environment? Why are we carrying out research on our environment? This is because we want to identify and assess environmental problems. We have problems, we want to know where are these problems coming from. But now we discovered that it is a whole lot of problems that is interconnected. The human, the plants, the animals, and the environment, they are all interwoven together. It is a one health system. So we want to identify and assess environmental problems. Another reason or objective is to develop sustainable environmental management practices. That is, to develop sustainable solutions for the various environmental challenges that we may have as human beings. Then, to monitor changes in ecosystem and human impacts. We don't have to wait until things begin to happen. We have to monitor changes. And that is why the meteorologicals can tell us, oh, there's going to be flooding in May or June, so get prepared, clean your drainages and all that, because they have studied the environment or the ecosystem. They can even tell us, okay, there's going to be fire outbreak, there's going to be volcanic eruption, there's going to be earthquake. So for us to monitor changes also in the ecosystem, we have to do environmental research. And after doing all this research and getting data or getting answers to the various problems, what do? We cannot take decision on our own. If our governments are not buying into what we are seeing, then there will be no solution. So after finding out the various problems, we have to inform, it has to lead to policy formation and decision-making processes by the politicians, that is the government bodies. And we also know that human activity affects the environment, both the natural environment and even the built environment that we built ourselves. So these are the objectives, the main reasons why we must study environmental research. So if we are asked to discuss issues around environmental research, you can give any example in your own field. You don't have to use microbiology, but you must know the reasons why you are studying environmental research. You must have an objective. So what are the types of environmental research that we can do? And you will discover that we have various environmental research methodologies. And almost every courses or area of field have a preference for one or two type of environmental research methodologies. We can do different research. We can do a descriptive research. The descriptive research will focus on observing and documenting environmental conditions without necessarily manipulating the variables of the environment. For example, you can study the biodiversity in protected areas. Maybe you have a park, amusement park. You can study whatever you want to study. Is it the effect of insects on the plants or whatever? Is it the effect of the birds? What's the activity of the birds? Are they eating the fruits? You can set up any question. Something is happening and you want to know. Do you want to know the rate at which maybe the insects are multiplying? Or is there an elephant there? You want to know the method of mating? And you can ask yourself any question. Do you want to know the biodiversity of microbiology in a specific, maybe the excreta of an elephant or the excreta of a monkey or the urine of a particular whatever? Or do you want to know? You can ask yourself different questions. So you want to observe. For descriptive, you are only observing. You are not manipulating anything. You are not changing the environmental conditions. You are not changing any variable. You carry out a descriptive research by focusing on observing and then documenting environmental conditions or whatever you see or whatever you want to study in a particular area. And the area protected because you don't want much of interference in your results. So the place is protected. So you can describe what happened. It's not an open field whereby you are studying a bird and then the bird is flying out or the animal has run out of the park, maybe the second day, and you want to study for 6 months. So the next one is analytical research. Analytical research examines relationship between environmental factors. For example, you can investigate the link between air pollution and respiratory diseases. That's an analytical research. You want to know, oh, okay, we have a census that is monitoring the level of carbon dioxide or SO2 in the environment. Then maybe we go to the teaching hospital, either LASU or LUTS, or we have some primary board hospital or private hospital. You want to study, maybe you want to say that in Southwest Nigeria, you want to study maybe during the dry season, the implication of SO2 or carbon dioxide on the respiratory system of human beings. That's an analytical research. But that means that you must work with the doctors and hospitals to be able to know how many people come into their facility and how many people presented respiratory infection. And then you check your census. Is it that with increase in carbon dioxide or with increase in SO2, is the respiratory diseases, people coming to complain about respiratory infections, are they getting more? So you can analyze that. Then there's experimental research. This involves control experiments to test hypotheses. This is mostly done by we scientists. It involves control experiments to test hypotheses. For example, studying the effectiveness of biofilter in removing pollutants. There are pollutants in the environment. Maybe you are working in a specific industry, maybe they are producing battery, or they are producing a product that emits SO2 or any other greenhouse gas. And then maybe the government has made it compulsory that they must use some certain filter before the air is released into the environment. Or you are working in a pharmaceutical industry and you discharge antibiotic into the environment, making the environment to be resistant to antibiotic. They might say, okay, treat your wastewater before you discharge it into the drainage or into the lagoon or into the water body. You can look at different industries for this. So for experimental research, we might have controlled experiment to test maybe the filter we are using are actually removing the pollutants. Are they removing the pollutants? If they are removing the pollutants, what is the percentage of pollutants being released into the environment? So that's an example. You have various case studies, so you can study whatever you want that is related to your field. Another type of experiment is modeling and simulations. For most people in physics, most people in geography, in geophysics, in engineering, they do this. It involves the use of computational tools, the mathematical thing. It involves the use of computational tools to predict. You can predict environmental changes. Those of you working in NIMET, you can use computational tools to predict environmental changes, e.g. climate models, predicting temperature rise. Then you can have interdisciplinary research that actually brings together different methods from various fields. It integrates diverse fields. So I've done so many works, so many experiments, whereby I have I'm working with a chemist. I also have biochemist. I have engineering. I have physics. Like when I was working on biogas, I had physics. I had engineering. When I was working on air pollution, I worked with medical people at Idiaraba and with chemistry people. And I've also worked with people that are doing policy. So like that. So there's interdisciplinary research that can bring together various fields to work together on the issue of environmental research. So you can have the biologists, the chemists, the geographers, and the social sciences coming together to work to find solutions to our environmental issues. All right, this modeling that we're talking about, the modeling and simulation, may involve approach that uses computer models to simulate environmental processes so as to produce the outcome of whatever happens in the environment. And there's also the numerical modeling that is often used to study the potential impact of climate or other large-scale environmental changes, not only climate, such as changes in the numbers and movement of animal or bacterial ecological communities. So you have different modeling that you can also simulate to be able to predict what happens in the environment in the nearest future, so as to warn people ahead. So let's look at the different research methodologies. So the field studies, you can do field studies. You can use whatever method that suits your own career. Depends on whatever you want to do. Rachel, please mute. So for the field studies is usually conducted in natural settings, in natural environments. For example, you want to go to the forest, you want to go to the lakes, the oceans, to carry out study. Maybe it's on crayfish, maybe it's on fish, maybe it's on butterfly, whatever. But it occurs in natural setting. Example, you can measure water quality in rivers. And then what are the tools that you can use for field study? It depends on what you want to study. So we can have sampling kits, you can have sensors, you can have pH meters, you can have drones. So the list is endless depending on what area of field that you are talking about that you want to study. Another method, another research methodologies in environment is laboratory studies. This laboratory studies, of course, is in controlled environments. Like we scientists, we do a lot of laboratory studies. So the environment is controlled. We actually go, we bring the sample, and then we study them in a controlled environment. For example, inside the laboratory or in the greenhouse. You have screen house. Some people want to study vegetation. Some people want to study the effect of insects. So they build screen houses and then they plant whatever they want to plant and study butterflies, study insects, study the rate of growth, or is it the limitation of some nutrients on some plants, maybe cassava or so. If they need to study the effect of temperature on growth of plant, they may apply some AC and regulate the temperature of that screen house. So it depends. So for example, you can decide to test soil microbial activity under different conditions. The soil microbial activity, the soil pH, you can decide to test. And so if you are going to test soil microbial activity, for example, I know I'm going to need spectrophotometer. I will do chromatography experiments, so I will need chromatography and some other tools that you will need depending on what kind of laboratory studies you want to do. You can decide if you are in the social sciences, you can use survey and questionnaire studies or methodologies. This is usually used, of course, the survey and question is common with the social and environmental health research people. For example, you want to assess public awareness of waste management. You want to find out, do people know what waste means? Have they ever heard about the word climate change? How are they managing their waste? After peeling their yams, where do they throw it? What happened to the plastic or the nylon that they use? All this, if you want to get all this information, you have to use survey and questionnaire methodology. So what you need is to have a structured interviews. You can have a structured interviews. In those days, what we do is you have a set of questions, then you print it out, then you start begging them to help you fill. But nowadays too, you can do that too, but nowadays online survey is common. You have set your question, then you send it to people, you help your friends to forward it to different platforms. You make the survey questions as simple as possible. You make it in such a way that people can understand the questions that you are asking. And you make sure it is not too voluminous, because somebody like me, if you give me a survey question and it is more than 2 or 3 pages, I will close it back, I won't touch it. So you have to plan ahead if you are using survey or questionnaire studies as a research methodologies. Then for the remote sensing and GIS method, mostly used by the physics, the engineering, all those that are in geography and all that. So it is used for large-scale environmental monitoring. For example, satellite imagery for deforestation analysis. You want to study how far deforestation in our environment. You cannot be doing that one by one. So you have to use the satellite imagery and the GIS software and all that to get your satellite data. Then we also have the meta-analysis and systematic reviews. In this case, what you are trying to do is to synthesize existing research to draw a broader conclusions. You know, like people have performed, maybe the scientists have performed a lot of laboratory studies on a particular topic. So you are going to you are going to get the published work from various scientists. You have to decide, are you studying Lagos State, for example, or Ogun State? Or are you studying Southwest? Or you are studying Southeast? Or you are studying the North? Or you are studying Nigeria? Or you are studying Africa? Or you are studying, making a global study? So your meta-analysis or systematic review will synthesize existing data to draw a bigger conclusion. Example is reviewing studies on plastic pollution impact. It could be any topic of your choice. And what you do most of the time if you want to present your seminar is like a systematic, it's a review, not a systematic review. What you are doing is like you are just gathering information in form of literature review. But when you do a systematic review, it is a meta-analysis, and there are some rules and regulations guiding systematic review and meta-analysis. That is another larger framework or course on its own. So many people claim that they have a review paper, but if it is not systematic, then it did not follow the due process. For example, if you want to carry out systematic review on a particular subject matter that has to do with environment, you must look for the right tool, the right software that you want to use. You must have published the topic that you want to do publicly. There must be an evidence that you have published it. You must tell us the conditions, whatever you want to study. Like I said, maybe you want to study a particular effect. You must tell us what you are studying. And you must also tell us between what year and what year you are studying. You cannot just leave it open. Are you studying between 2020 and 2025? Are you studying for your state alone, for Lagos State alone, or for Southwest? There must be a definition of what you are doing to guide. It's a whole lot. So, but meta-analysis and systematic review is another method, another research methodology to study environment. All right, so let us look at data collection and analysis. How do you collect your data? How do you collect your data? There are primary data collections, and primary data collection involve directly obtaining your data from the environment. You just go to the environment directly and you obtain your environment. For example, if I want to know now that, okay, this is the lagoon, and I observe that there are rotting wood inside the lagoon, and I want to know, oh, this wood was here 2 years ago, but now it is getting rotten. So I want to know what are the microbial diversity that were involved or that are involved in the decomposition of this wood. I have to go there to collect my data. I will go there and collect whatever you can collect. The data you can collect directly is the primary data collection. Maybe you want to collect butterflies that have black and pink coloration. You want to count them in an enclosed environment. There are the things you can count. Oh, what number of monkey do climb a particular tree in an enclosed environment in 24 hours. You can collect, you can obtain those data directly. So the method will include sampling. I can sample. If I want to know the microbial species that are involved, I can take my sample and then pull them together and then take it to the lab. You can also observe directly, like if you want to count butterflies or monkey, depend on the experiments you are doing. And for secondary data collection, you have to collect from existing sources. For example, people have worked and there are reports, there are published studies, the journals are there. And then you know where to get them, whether it's Google Scholar, whether it's ResearchGate, or you want to use the cross-reference, or even you want to go to just type it on Google. But if you can't find it, because for some of us, most of our work may not be on just Google, you may not be able to get it. If you get it, it will be asking you for money. So but you can go to cross-reference, you can go to Google Scholar, or you can even tell your friends abroad that their institution already paid for it to get it for you. So when you want to do secondary data collection, for example, you collect from existing sources. Maybe you have government reports, maybe you have blogs, maybe you have published data. You can extract your data and then pull them together. They are secondary data because You were not the one that collected that data directly from the environment by yourself. Then we have data analysis techniques. There are statistical methods like ANOVA, like regression analysis, qualitative analysis, content analysis, thematic analysis, the GIS analysis. You set up a GIS, you set up a satellite. After the number of months or weeks or days that you set them for, you collect them and then you analyze. If I do take my microbial samples, okay, and I have maybe 3 or different type of microorganisms, I may want to do statistical analysis to know which one have its highest. Depending on what I want to do, I may use ANOVA, I may use regression analysis. All depend on what you are working on and what you want to find, what you want to get. So for most of this analysis, Dr. Maloma should be able to take you some method on analysis. So, but there are ethical considerations when you are doing environmental research. There are ethics. Every profession have its own ethics, and you have to follow the ethics of anything you want to do as educated people. We don't do things haphazardly. So there are ethical considerations. For example, you must ensure sustainability in whatever you want to do. You are an environmentalist, so you don't do things that will further destroy the environment or destroy the biodiversity. So you must ensure sustainability and you must minimize ecological disturbances. You must not destroy the ecological balance in your attempt to carry out environmental research. For example, I want to take maybe soil. I cannot be using crude method that will break the earthworm or destroy the insects. You know, you have to be mindful of every living thing that is in the environment. The method must be sustainable. I cannot use method that will make me to use chemicals that will kill fishes in water. Instead, I will use nets. So that is one. Then you must obtain informed consent when you are dealing with human-related studies. There must be consent. Like I said, you want to study maybe pollutants and the effect on respiratory infection. You don't just go and be listing those patients without their consent. There are some studies that you will do that the patients have to have given you the permission to go ahead. I did a study during my master's student, as a master's student. I wanted to know the relationship between HIV infection and the presence of otitis media. And so I have to study, how do I do that? I have to study anaerobic organisms because otitis media, it is anaerobic organism that causes them. But we discover along the line that most people that have HIV usually have otitis media. But that was an hypothesis. We really need to check whether that is true or not. So for us to get, I cannot just say because, oh, they are coming to Lut. I went to Lut to collect sample. I cannot say because they will wash their ears and those pus will come out, then I should collect the pus and start going like that. No, I have to explain to them, I'm a student, I'm studying this, and I'm trying to find out the relationship between this and this. Whoever said, no, don't take my sample, you leave. So sometimes it may take like the one I did, it took me almost 7 months to be able to get about 180 samples. I had to go to Lut, I had to go to LASUT. So you must obtain informed consent for human-related studies. Whether you are in the social sciences, whether you are an engineer, as long as it will involve human beings, you must take permission, you must get their informed consent. Then there must be proper disposal of hazardous materials during experiment. For example, when we work with microorganisms, from blood sample, from fecal sample, that is the excreta or urine, the rule in microbiology is that you have to treat every sample as if they are potentially harmful, as if they are pathogenic. So you have to dispose them appropriately. I cannot take the needle or the syringe that I use in taking sample from HIV patients, for example, and just throw it in the dustbin. No, you have to go and submit it through either through pharmaceutical company or through the medical route where they will collect it, and they know how to, destroy it appropriately so that another person will not be infected. So it is with other chemists, and you are working with hazardous chemicals. So you have to do proper disposal of materials after your experiments. And then you must ethically ensure that there's transparency in whatever you do. There's nothing should be hidden. If you tell people that, oh, you want to check the effects of insecticide, maybe on some specific group of insects that you have collected, you tell them the particular insecticide, but you will not be transparent if you bring in other things that you didn't tell them that you want to do and you start doing it. So there must be transparency, and then there must be reproducibility in your research finding. If you tell me that, oh, when I checked this in so place, I was able to get 20% of so. If your guys send another person there, then they must be able to get plus or minus 2 of whatever you get. Anything more than that or less than that means that your result is not reproducible, it is not accurate. So your methodology must be well written out so that it will be transparent and reproducible. When we write journal, I don't know how many of you have published before, but as researchers and academia, we write a lot of publications. And one major issue is usually the issue of reproducibility. So if you give me a methodology or a paper to review, I will be much interested in your methodology. And by mere reading it as a scientist, I will know whether your method is reproducible or not, whether other people can carry out your experiments or not, I will know. What are the challenges that you can face in conducting environmental research? There may be climate variability, which may also affect the consistency of your data. In those days, I don't know whether you are aware that we can say, okay, this is rainy season. But nowadays, you discover that rain can just fall at any time. It is no longer rainy season. Outside the country, I was there for a while of recent, and we are supposed to have winter. And there was winter, really, but it just started raining suddenly. And then all the snows turned to ice block, and it was so slippery. So for about 10 days, nobody could come out. So the climate change has really affected so many things. So the climate can be varied. You discover that it may rain in Ibadan today. Lagos is very hot at the same time. It may rain at any time. So our rainy season is no longer from April or May or June. Anything can happen. And last year, you discover it was rainy up till around early December, if I'm correct. So there may be variability. So for you to say that you want to study seasonal changes on a particular insect or the growth of a particular plant, there might be data inconsistency because rain might just fall, or maybe you want to study it across a dry season. Anything can just happen. So that is one of the challenges. And then another major challenges we have in environmental research is limited access to funding and research facilities. There are many equipment or tools that you want to use that are not readily available. For example, my PhD student last year was supposed to start work on the effects of air pollutants like carbon dioxide, methane, and all that, and the environment. So he was supposed to consider environment where we have heavy traffic and clean environment, maybe like Victoria Island. So we consider the bus stop, we consider the dump site, because on the dump site, you have various things happening. Methane is being released, your yam, your potato, your vegetable are being rotten, so some carbon dioxide has been released. So we look at places that are populated with heavy traffic, clean places, places with dump site, and then we want to know, are there indicators like microorganisms? Are there a specific type of microorganism that we isolate each time we see these greenhouse gases? We were supposed to work on that. Okay, I tried to get funding. During the process of application for funding, we try to price hair, what is it called now? Hair sampler. They call it microbial hair sampler. And the amount was 2,300,000 and maybe 50,000 as at the time we applied for the funding. Suddenly we had dollar surge, everything. By the time we got approval for that, okay, we won the grant. By the time we got the approval, let me tell you how much the air sampler was almost 11 million naira, from 2.3 million to 11 million. I cannot go back to the funder to tell them that, oh, there's a difference of over 9 million. So that is another thing that can affect environmental research. Funding issue, the issue of research facilities. During my PhD time, I was carrying out some studies, and I was to use GCMS. And by the time they gave me my bill for some quantity, maybe 48 or so sample, my bill was about 5 million plus. Where do I want to get it as a student? But I was able to network during one of the conferences outside the country. I met another PhD student in the US. He connected me to his supervisor, and I was told to come and use the equipment free of charge. So they only told me, just get money for your food, for your feeding, and for your accommodation. So it was done free of charge. So research facilities and limitation to funding is a big challenge when it comes to environmental research. Also, there are data gaps and lack of standardized methodologies. I'm using my method, you are using your method. The method you are using, are they standardized? For us in the science, we must always use standardized methods. So they will always ask you, where is the reference for whatever you are doing? So, but there are some fields that you have, everybody use whatever method they, but the method must be standardized so that everything will be the same. And there are also ethical and political challenges in environmental policy making. You can imagine there was a time we did some research, and then we want to write blog, and also, so we invited, I don't want to tell you his name, we invited one politician who is it House of Rep or Senate? You know, we academic, that we don't have money. We invited this person so that it will be our voice at the National Assembly. Do you know what he asked us? How much are you going to pay me? That was the question, the first question he asked us. How much are we going to pay him? So eventually he did not come because we're not ready to bribe him or pay him anything. And that is why scientists are working very hard, getting enough data, but the government is doing whatever they like because they are not ready. It's whatever they want to do, they will do. So we have political challenges, and you all already know in this country that there are political challenges. So no matter how hard we try to say, okay, these are environmental issues, these are the reasons why we have this issue, this is what we can do about it, there is a problem getting it across to the politicians that will make the rule and regulation to stop the problem. If you have any questions so far, please can you let me know before I proceed? I still have like 8 minutes to spend with you. Any question? Are you still hearing me, class captain?
Good,
Yes,
can hear
we are
you.
still hearing you. We are still hearing you, ma.
Okay, I hope everything is fine, right?
Yes, ma. Very fine, ma.
It's fine, ma. It's fine, ma. Very fine.
All right, thank you. So I hope as I'm talking, you are trying to look at your own field and how the different examples I'm trying to give to you is going to also work in your own area. So
Yes,
let's
ma.
look at 1 or 2 examples before we leave. I'll leave at 7 because they're already calling me for the other meeting. So let's look at some example of environmental research. Environmental research has been carried out for whether it is biotic world, that is, whether it's on living things, or abiotic world, whether it's on non-living things. Biotic world, living things, it could be human being, it could be effect of anything, maybe carbon dioxide or methane on human being or on earthworm. Is it the pH condition of soil or water on a specific species of fish? Anything that is living. Then you can also carry on the non-living thing, maybe it's soil, maybe it's water, maybe you are studying the temperature or the pH. Anything you want to talk about, you want to think about about the environment can be studied. So how do you study the biotic world? I'll just talk about this slide and then we close and continue. when next we'll meet. So studying the biotic world, that is, if you want to study living things in the environment, what and what do you need to study them? You know that when you want to carry out your experiments as an environmentalist, you don't just carry your bag and be going about the field or go to the river. Maybe you are working somewhere and there's a concern and they say, okay, maybe Joyce, go and count or find out the number of earthworm that you can find maybe in a gram of soil and all that. You must have a reason why you want to carry out this experiment. You don't just, there must be a reason. So when you know what you want to do, you have an objective, you have an aim, then you will know the materials that you need for your work. So for example, if you want to study living things, you will need your camera, you will need your traps. You need camera traps. Camera traps means, okay, look at those people studying lion, those people studying snakes. Are they there? They are not there. They are using camera traps. They are using camera, but you also have camera traps. You will trap that animal down so that you will be able to study that animal for as long as you want to study it. And then you have planted a camera that is studying or recording whatever that animal is, but you are not there. So it depends on what you want to do. You may need a camera traps. And this may include technology such as you want to study night vision, motion sensitivity, and or you want to use drone, or you may need aerial cameras for whatever you want to do. You are going to the field, you also need markings or markers. If you want to study a bird, for example, or fish in the water, you need to mark the ones. Otherwise, if you catch one and you have counted it and you throw it back, how are you sure that the one you are going to catch again is not the same one, except you mark it? So there are markers or tags that you can, if it is a fish, now you can mark the fin of the fish. If it's a cow, you can mark the ears of a cow. If it is a crayfish or lobster, you can mark the carapace. You can mark the scale of fishes or the foot tags of a bird. So it depends on anything. So it can help you to study their age, their health, or whatever you want to study. Anything you want to study. Maybe it's in a pool of water. Maybe you need to study 300 fishes in the lagoon or oceans. So you have to mark them. Otherwise, you keep making a mistake and be catching the same fish all over again. You can also use trackers, such as satellite tracking devices and radio collars, if you don't have to stay there. The DNA can be used for those of us in microbiology or cell biology. They can use DNA. You can use chemical tracking device, which can be done either through obtaining genetic material directly from an individual or any animal or living things at all. And then you can analyze the environment for their DNA signature. If I want to know now, if I want to know okay, I told you I want to know the diversity of microorganisms that is responsible for rotting a fruit or a tree or a plant or anything. I can collect 1 gram from different parts, pull them together, extract the DNA. And from that DNA that I've extracted, I can know so many things. I can know the diversity. What kind of microorganisms are these? Are they bacillus? Are they actinomycetes? I can know. Then I can also study the enzyme in that same sample. Study the enzyme will make me to know what that organism, what is the role of that organism in that specific sample. If, for example, if I see lactase enzyme, I will know that this organism is actually digesting lactose. If I see maybe sucrase, I know sucrase is an enzyme that breaks down sucrose. So I will be able to know this is the role that this organism is performing in this environment. I can use that signature to determine it. You can also use auditory monitoring through detecting and recording the low or high pitches of some organisms like birds, like lion, whatever. So you have different equipment or tools that you can use to study the biotic world. And I have examples here. using bioindicators to identify population or disturbances. Bioindicators are species that can indicate pollution or disturbance trend because they are sensitive to one or both and respond accordingly. For example, in IITA here, they have a lake. And there are different species of fishes, and they don't allow people to catch the fishes until they get to certain stage or age. So, or weight. So if you want to catch fish, they won't tell you not to catch fish. You use hook. If you want to use net, they will give you the specific, you can't catch the small ones. Because those fish must remain there because they are using them as bioindicator because they recycle their water, everything, there's no wastage. So if they get to that lake every day, they know what they want. They collect water sample and test it. For them, once they start seeing dead fish floating on the lake, they know there's a pollution from somewhere. So all they need to do now is to take the sample of water, maybe to do HPLC or water, to know what is the pollutant that is killing the fish. If you go to Delta, where you have pollution from oil spillage, and you see the deltas crying that you've killed their fishes, and you will see millions of fishes flowing on top of the river. That is it. So fish can be used as an indicator, for example. You can use microorganism as a bioindicator to study maybe water is polluted and can give people dysentery or cholera. So I would like to stop here for today. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, and then we can move on from there another time. You can unmute if you have a question for me, please.
Thank you, Ma. Ma, please, are we going to get this lecture note?
Oh, yes. By the time I'm done with this lecture, then I'll give you this lecture note. That's the way I do it. I prepared it for you. So my questions are going to be from here too.
Okay, Ma. Thank you very much,
If
Ma.
I need to give you a detailed note, I will give you a detailed note. But as a postgraduate student, once you have these points, you should be able to develop it yourself, from my understanding. And that is why those who don't come to class will not be able to answer a question, because it's not everything that I'm talking that I've written down. Am I correct?
Yes, Ma.
All right,
Yes,
thank you very much. So Oluwatomi Sin Bodunde, you studied geography and environmental management at Unilorin, great Unilorin. My first degree, BSc, was in Unilorin. So Omolara Ubaru, studied biochemistry, working as quality control supervisor in a beverage company, good. Olusegun Babajide, electrical electronics. And Omolabake Oyetunji Rukayat, environmental management and toxicology, very good. Yes, and we have Rachel Iloba. She studied English very well, because English, you will ask me what English has to do with environment. It has a lot, even if you are not doing sustainability analysis, it has a lot, because the social sciences aspect, human behaviors, how do they even understand what you are talking about? If they don't understand you, they will continue to pollute the environment. And then we have Moses Asu, zoology, good. And then Suzanne Agada, she studied geography. John Woodrow, Clara, wildlife technology, and that's it. Moses Oyekunle, geography. Titilayo Bolaji, physics, yes. Olatunbosun, applied mathematics, yes, that is our data analyst. Shitu Shita Balogun, mechanical engineering. Samson Oyediran, mining engineering. Very good, they're all everybody is relevant. So thank you so much for today. And myself, your class captain, by the way, you should thank him, because he's been on my neck. He actually pushed me, because I didn't know I could cope with exam issues and also with lectures. So, but I thank God I was able to give me the encouragement, and here we are. We have broken the things, and the lecture have started, and God help us. So I will let you know when the next class we hold.
Thank you very much, Ma.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so have a good evening.
Hello, Ma. Can we get the recordings?
After we finish the entire class, we've not finished this slide. We are here to finish the slide. I prepared a 2-hour slide, but because of the other meeting, I have to stop here.
Okay, ma'am.
So when we are done with this slide, I'll give you this slide before I start another one.
All right, ma'am. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
ma'am.
ma.
You're welcome.